Yeah, ran into a cherry tree. So welcome staff. I'll better get that going. We've got those going now. That's really good. Today is a workshop prior to our council decision that we're looking at this afternoon, pages 38 to 151 around our annual plan. And today is simply Mike Ross will go through a roadmap go through the annual plan roadmap and progress to date. Nick is going to give us an update on the final finance position and some rating scenarios, how they've panned out. And then we'll be with Sarah on communications approach and our special edition of Te Marapuna. Feel free to ask questions as you go along. There will also be plenty of time to ask further questions today as we go through the process in council meeting. So this is not about a decision. This is about getting an update of where we're at and the process and just some clarity. So feel very free to ask questions and seek clarity. So I'll hand straight over to Mike to start us off. Michael.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, sorry, I don't have the roadmap.
Oh, yeah, understand.
But suffice to say, the roadmap hasn't changed from your last February workshop. The key thing here is, I think you've summed up nicely, is that we're at a point where if you decide this afternoon, you can instruct staff to consult on changes that we've worked through to this point around your long-term plan. So this morning's really about providing you space to discuss any other matters that you might want clarity from us, staff, and indeed amongst yourselves as a group before you go into the formal meeting this afternoon. Just thinking about the last workshop, and from my perspective, there were 4 things I heard you specifically want to hear about, and amongst other things that you might decide amongst yourselves, and they were about detail rating impacts. And at the last workshop, Nick Donnelly went through some district level rating changes between Queenstown and Dunedin, since then, he's brought back more detailed information that's included in the formal report. The second thing was the consultation content. You're sitting on the draft of Te Marapuna as individual councillors, and there'll be some looking for feedback on that. And then there were 2 other lesser things, but a bit more as important, proposed changes to our fees and charges and some refinements to our measures and targets. And again, those 2 things are included in the formal report. So there were 4 things that came through, and maybe things that you might want to raise under your own steam as well. So just before we sort of crack into those 4 things, the report has an options section in it, and I'll talk about it now because it gives you just the decision making. So the decision making steps that are provided by the recommendations in the report, importantly, they give you wiggle room to bring in some change from this workshop. And I know that sounds a bit of a no-brainer, but the key thing in that options thing is saying it's the scope of those changes that you bring through that's important. For example, significance creeps in again. If something were significant to pop up at this point, we'd be surprised if it did, but anything's possible. We just need to be very careful about that scope. And the report talks a bit about that. Sometimes that situation can come up, and indeed we have seen that around some of the councils around New Zealand. Staff aren't envisaging that, and hence the recommendations that we've given in the report. So just on that, I think we'll just open up the discussion, and should we start with rates? Nick, should we go through the examples?
Any questions at this stage? Hand over to Nick.
What we've got is, I'll just share my screen because there's just, from a rating point of view, there's just a couple of things to point out. The first thing would be we haven't changed any of the underlying numbers since we talked to you last in that last workshop. So the overall rates increase, the total rates increase is still that 7.8%. But what we have got in the paper and then in the supporting documents is one of the attachments is we've got all the rates examples in the distribution graphs. So I will just I'll share my screen just so that you can see what I'm talking to. But in the paper, you'll notice that there is we've given the median property examples, and these will be what the examples that will go into Te Marapuna as well. So just the median for each district, and you can see what the for that value property for each district, you can see what last year's rates were and what this year's proposed will be. And then you can see the increase. So the increases range from on the median property for each district from just over $15 for Waitaki up to $50 for Queenstown. But you can also see that, you know, there's quite a difference in the median for each of the districts. So the increase percentage there works out. You can see there that there is a bit of variation, but you can see there if you sort of, you know, if you average those out, you can see why you end up with the average or the total rates, which becomes the average is that 7.8. We also talked last time, haven't put anything in the paper, but I think the question was asked about revaluations, and what we've got happening this time is these values are based on equalised values, and we get the equalisation certificate at September every year. So it's based off last September's values, and Queenstown is due to value. So that they're in the process now, and I think it's with the Valuer General at the moment. So those values will actually be updated. Well, they should be updated in the next few months. So by the time we actually go to do the rates resolution, Queenstown will have actual new valuations in place. But this here reflects that what that increase should be by putting the equalisation in, because the values that they will get updated to will be effective from September last year. So although we just get a blanket across each district percentage to apply for equalisation, they will get some suburb variations and different things. But then theirs will become the actual valuations when we do the rate resolution. So their equalisation percentage will drop out. And Dunedin is due to be revalued later this year. So that those valuations won't come through before we do the rates resolution, and they won't even be in the database update before we do the rate strike. But so it'll effectively, for same as every other district, it'll just be the equalised value, which will take account of where those valuations should change later in the year.
Gary, you had a question.
Yeah, just on that. So any of those and their median value, the rates increase. So it's a median increase, isn't it? It's sitting within a range. So if I had a $1.25 million property in Queenstown, then my increase may or may not be that amount, because that's a range across the properties. So it could be something lower or something higher. Is that right?
Well, that is an example of what that's an actual example of a $1.25 million property in Queenstown. But you could get in Queenstown Lakes, you could get two separate $1.25 million properties, yeah, and they potentially would get different rates because you've got things like if one was in Wanaka, they're not going to be paying public transport, yeah. Whereas and even in Queenstown, they could be outside of the transport zone, so then they wouldn't be paying that. And you got to remember the biosecurity rate is based on land value. So even if it's got a capital value of 1.25, if you had two $1.25 million properties, capital value, but their land value is different, they'll get a different biosecurity rate.
Yes.
But all things being equal, if they were if they were both in the transport zone or both out of the transport zone, both had the same land value, yeah, they'll get the same. They will pay that exact same amount.
But we do seem to fall into this trap year on year where this will get publicised. And then when people actually do receive their rates or go onto the online estimator or whatever, they find that it's different. And I suppose we've asked about, can we display the range that they may fall within? Because then rather than just having a number, you know, we keep hearing from Queenstown people who say, well, you've said a number, but it's actually very different for us.
Yeah. So what this is trying to say is what tends to happen is you take the total rates dollars, and that's the increase is 7.8%. And last time, year one of the LTP, 16.3. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we were seeing through that was, yes, while it's 16.3 total Otago level, it was different across all the regions. Yeah. And for example, we've seen put information into various committees and everything, and we had all those separate distributions. So those distribution graphs that are attached, we had those separately as well. And we were showing that it was always going to be higher for Queenstown. And Queenstown sat with, I think it was sort of roughly low 30s to sort of mid 40s% was where they were at. Particularly, and the higher one was if they were in the transport zone. So what this is showing is when we did this last time, yeah, Queenstown did have a much higher percentage than all the others. What we're seeing is theirs will be roughly in line, and Queenstown is showing 7.9. Now there'll still be fluctuations within that, because as you go into higher value properties, if you like, the effect of uniform charges drops away, and they will get higher general rates, they will get higher catchment management rates that are based on capital value. So they might see a higher percentage. But that's why if you go to the examples, we've got a whole range of Queenstown examples, and you can see what higher value than 1.25 million, what their increases will be. It'll still be, it might go a little bit higher than 7.9%, but we're not gonna see with this annual plan the variations that we saw with year one of the LTP, because we actually haven't changed the underlying rating methodology like we did where we changed the whole revenue and financing policy, and that moved all of our rates around, and that's why we got the district fluctuations. Whereas what this table's showing is we're not going to see that with this annual plan. But don't get me wrong, you will still get people who will come back and go, well, you said 7.8 and mine was 8.2.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I wonder,
That's
Gary,
the point I'm raising.
yeah, your point is a valid one, and we've heard a lot about it. So there is the language or the text that's provided alongside any of this sort of information needs to be very clear that it's an estimate, an example, and that there will still be a range.
Yes.
And that the online rating calculator is the best way to understand the impact of your property. So we can make sure we're very clear with a statement directly under any of this information. And again, I think encouraging people onto that calculator is the best way to.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful from a clarity perspective for these people who are getting these rate
So I
shocks.
think Amanda's signaling Te Mata Puna includes, but she'll be able to
Yeah, just to, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at Tamapuna and Sarah, I don't want to speak on behalf of you, but it talks about rates examples as the heading, and it says what rates look like for each property is different. These examples show the rates impact for the median property in different parts of Otago. Use our rates estimated to see your estimated rates with the web address, and that's in a blue pop-out box. So I think it's pretty clear where the detail being provided in the high level communication, that it is just a point of data. Yeah, but if you thought that needed to be clarified further, we'd, welcome that feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rightio, thank you.
So Nick, on page 55, you've actually got that sensitivity analysis of the rate movements, and that sort of shows the block in Queenstown where there's, I think, 26,000 of the ratepayers will be getting between a $10 and $100 increase. So that's probably done it more on an individual basis, is it? Or
so then if you go to, and I haven't changed my screen, so I'll switch. Switch it on to this one. So then the actual, what we've got is, however many pages that is, 46 pages in the attachment, gives the distribution graphs, if you like, the sensitivity, and then gives rates examples. And it's done, so this first one you can see there, the bulk of the increases is in between that, is in the 5 to 10%, which is that big bar there. Yep. So that's where the majority of people across the whole district are going to be. The dollars one, we probably haven't broken that down enough. So a lot of it is showing in that 10 to 100, but actually a lot of it will be smaller than that. So I might redo some of that and send that back out. But if you go through and have a look by district, you can see there, Dunedin district, you've still got the bulk of the people are getting between the 5 and 10%, which is what you'd expect, because that's where we're sitting with that 7.8. So what you're sort of looking for when you go through with this, is there any sort of real outliers? Central Otago still in the 5 to 10%. Clutha 5 to 10%, and Queenstown. So they do have some more creeping into the 10 to 15%. Yep. And that's because of the higher capital values, and that's because that's that impact of the uniform charges sort of being diluted as the capital values get higher. And when you've got higher capital values, you're going to pay higher rates because you've got the general rate, but in particular, you've got the catchment management rate, which is going up by over $2 million to pay for the new Enviro Fund. That's all capital value based. So that's why Queenstown will see slightly higher. Yep.
Good. Kate.
I presume that when you look at the on that page sensitivity, you've got some places getting a $5,000 rate increase at subdivisions, I presume, and or new builds on empty land. Sorry, if you look, you just had it. If you go down,
yeah. Into on this page.
Yeah, you've got some 4 people at the right hand side of that, 4 people paying $5,000 more in rates, and I'm just checking that I'm reading this the right way. I presume that's from new builds on empty sections or subdivisions.
I'd have to go have a look. I mean, after
sorry,
this,
your question was, are there any outliers? And
Yep.
so I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the commercial, seeing some people paying substantially more, and just understanding why. It's the outliers that I think.
Yeah, but paying $5,000, they'll be the properties that I would assume paying in there, and this is in Queenstown. But
Sorry, this is $5,000 more, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So their
Yeah.
increase, their increase is more than 5,000. I could go away and have a look at what those properties are, but it will be because they are high capital value properties. They will
Yep.
be $50 to $100 million properties. So it's still percentage wise, it's still the same percentage. It's just that they're coming off such a high base of what they pay because their capital value is so high.
Okay, so that, what, it isn't subdivision or anything like that, because
That's on new property.
it's on
No.
your property.
Yeah,
Where
it could,
do new
it-
properties
it-
come on?
Got Thorn Hotel.
Could be a hotel.
yeah, it'll be absolutely something like that. The airport, the airport there that is, I think their capital value is over $100 million.
Mhm.
You know, so it'll be something like those properties. So new properties just, you know, subdivisions, they just come through as normal properties.
Yeah.
So as the database is updated, they just come through.
They don't come as new rates, as in this is an increase in those properties. I'm just checking, because this is the change.
Yeah.
Change in rating. And so we neutralize those
Yeah.
new ones.
I'd have to go and have a look. Generally, when new properties come on board, they come on board first as empty sections. So they take a step up, you know, but it's relatively small because, you know, the capital value, you know, might be typically with those subdivisions, it might be up to, you know, it can be maybe the cheapest in Queenstown, one looking at $500,000. Some of them might be more. And then they go and build on it. And, you know, and the capital value jumps up to $1.5, $2 million. So when you're seeing that jump, when you see those two jumps, it's still, you know, your increase in rates is still going to be down in the hundreds. They're certainly not jumping from 0 to 5,000 instantly because of a subdivision.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
checking we're reading this the same way. Thanks.
Yeah.
Alan?
Thanks. Yes, I'll just talk loudly while that gets going. Nick, I was just wondering an explanation of a couple of those, some of those examples on page 79 in the council papers, for example. Which I'll just find, so I know what I'm talking about. Where the CV is, it says CV 1.9 million and then total CV, there's two CV figures there, one saying total CV. What does that mean? Page 79, page 80, for example, if those on them.
The green line.
Yeah. That top green line, what does that mean? CV and total CV.
It's a typo.
It does appear in quite a number
Yeah.
of pages.
Yeah, yeah. It's one the capital value of the land and one the capital value.
I think,
Is that what you're saying? I thought it was.
yeah, I'll have to go and have a look. I think it's typo. I think it's meant to be, one of the difference is meant to be land value.
Yeah.
So you've got total CV, but you've got,
Land values and CV maybe.
yeah, I'll go away and have a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right, thanks.
Thanks,
but as you can see for all of those, you know, examples, so as you go through, yeah, they're all in the flood scheme ones, so I would assume it's going to be for, I assume one of them should be land value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elliot?
Yeah, I just had the same question as Kate, basically, but for the percentage is rather than the raw values. So just looking at that was two that were more than 50% and one that was more than 75%. Just seeing if you had any details you could share about
Which ones?
What page?
it was on the sensitivity analysis for the whole
Oh,
region. I can't remember which ones it was captured under, but the rural ones, so I was assuming those were either quite small capital values, so it's a lot easier to jump above 75%, or maybe a new build, a new subdivision.
sorry, so is it in the graphs or is it
So the
examples?
graphs.
Yeah.
Just says this.
What
Because-
page?
58 on diligent or
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right, so we've got,
There's one at 75% and two at
rural,
50%.
so you're looking at, say, page 58, where it was the rural ones.
That was the rural one.
Yeah, so we did do some, you know, after the districts, we did residential, rural and commercial. So, yeah.
So just looking at that stream for the actual raw numbers, I guess would sort of indicate that that 75% increase was not actually that much in raw numbers potentially, but I just, yeah, just if you happen to recall maybe what kind of property that might have been.
No, I don't.
That's okay.
But again, I can go away and have a look at that one so that, you know, if you want to raise that this afternoon, we can have, you know, we can let you know sort of what that is.
Yeah, and again, probably on that same graph at the other end of the scale where you've got 21 with a 50% reduction. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, in the rural properties, you can see there is a little bit down there that sort of blips up with decreases. That decrease will be because we are removing the dairy rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you've sort of got those properties down in that, you know, 10 to 15 to 20, and then you've even got 21 and 50%.
Yeah.
But what's that? Yeah, well, this is just rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why you see those negatives down.
The
there.
rates are coming down, but they're paying a fee to get the swapping out of rates.
So it'd be good to have an explanation of that for this afternoon.
Yeah.
That'd be really good. Yeah, Lloyd.
Wait, my question
You
was
happy
just,
with that? Sorry, get the explanation. Yep.
my question was just around the sensitivities again, and just, and it's around the Queenstown ones, and just following up from a visit Gretchen and I made. Can you, so the rates calculated, when will it be live? But like, how can you compare like a $4 million house is like like the average you've done 1.25 million, if the house is 2.5 million, is that double the increase?
No, you need to go and have a look, because it doesn't just double, because you've got uniform rates in there that don't change regardless of the fact that the property doubled in value. But you know, if you go through and look at the examples, so central, so what do we got in here? So these are just, you know, these are just examples here. So there's your median 1.2.
Yeah.
You got one there that's, for example, Wanaka of 1.5. You can see their amount is slightly less, but their increase is slightly higher. Yep.
Yeah.
What do we got? Shot over country 1.3. Actually, you know, that's actually slightly lower.
Yeah, I was just trying to get a comparison, you know,
So
medium house to bigger house and how to fix it in the same market, in the same area.
yeah, there's Queenstown, it's lifestyle, you know, rural lifestyle, 3.1 million CV. And a Wanaka 3 million CV. You can see their increases. So they're going up, you know, 125 and 136. So whereas the median was 1.25 and that increase was about $50.
Yeah.
So, you know, theirs is, there's, you know, more than double that. But you can see the breakdown of where that is, you know, big, they've got $45 of that is in catchment management.
So the key again, as Amanda said, will be that descriptor in Te Marapuna to making sure that we are directing people to go and have a look at their actual property. And if I wanted to myself, I could put bang in an address and see that anyway. So if you're really keen to know the difference between it.
Is that up and running now?
No,
No,
it'll be,
no.
once you've done this, so it would be, I think we're targeting having that up and running sort of in early March.
Yeah.
Because we sort of, what date do we actually sort of go live with, we've still got a couple of weeks before it goes out and we sort of officially announce.
There's a lead in time, so
Yeah.
we're all set to go
Yeah.
before the.
Well, just we've been to rate bar is concerned, they're pretty keen to have a zero rates increase, like most payers, I guess, but I think it would be quite good to go people like that who have been made inquiries early, just upfront where it's at and why.
Yeah, there's plenty of people go and have a look. Just interesting, there's a Queenstown Lakes commercial property, Queenstown Hotel, got $116 million capital value. It's going up 2,500. So it's not quite at that 5,000, but I think we've got some, we pull out some specific properties at that have big capital values at the back. So I just have to page through.
Yeah, Nick, I would say you've done a fairly good sample of properties and areas, but again,
Yes.
it will be once that calculator,
Yeah.
and you've got to wait for this decision to be made before you can fire the calculator up.
Yeah.
As soon as you get that up, those could be.
There's some,
Right,
a couple of the big ones there.
Yeah.
So Clyde Dam,
Yeah.
700 million CV, it's going up 15,000.
Yeah.
Roxburgh Dam's going up 7. You've got the DCC Three Waters properties,
Yeah, so they're all that, we'll leave that,
Yep.
Gary, you had a question?
and I think
Yeah, you had made the offer of some suggestions around how Te Matapuna might be changed slightly. When I look at the wording, I wonder if we could just bolden up use our rates estimator to see your estimated rates, so that stands out a little bit more. And then where you have a large contact your ORC councillors, if that condensed down a wee bit, there might be room to have even a screenshot of what that where you go to insert your rates, just to make it even more apparent to people that, because I mean, I had sort of glossed over that and went straight to the numbers, but that's a suggestion.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Sarah and Joe, I'm sure that can be accommodated in tweaking that. So thank you for those points.
Yeah, it's just my suggestion.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks, Gary. Any further on that?
Oh, the risk of having comments on Te Matapuna,
And just, yeah,
I've got one comment. I just, because I was sort of looking at it. and I
Sorry,
think-
can I just jump in? So we've got a section coming up.
It's
on
coming.
with Sarah and Joe, so
Yep.
just, so Nick will
In
run
this
through the
session,
first
though.
section. Yeah, this morning.
Yep. We'll just go. Mike was going to give us the progress report. Nick's doing the rates as at the start, and then the communication team's going to go over to Matapuna.
I have another rates question. If that's
If
right.
you've got a rates question, no trouble, you may go.
No, thank you. So while we're on rates, if I as 1/11th councillors said, this year I'm concerned that we are introducing a lot to the ratepayers, including the $2 million environmental fund, of which we don't have a structure in place to be able to administer it. So we were discussing that, and unfortunately I missed half of it, partially thanks to roadworks. But if we were to defer that, or a portion of that, say we were to say we're going to only bring forward $500,000 and we were going to save $1.5 million for potentially a latter year, what quantum impact would it have on those numbers as we see them there?
$2 million is 3%.
So that's quite significant.
You can calculate that back from that, not just 2 million, about 3%.
Yeah.
Right.
On the rates. Yep.
It's
600,000.
That's a discussion that's absolutely open to the table when you're considering both the draft annual plan, and obviously we've prepared the draft annual plan with the full 2 million included, because that's the current arrangement. So you could make a change to the draft as part of approval process this afternoon. It's a reasonably late change given what we've done today, or through deliberations and final decisions. It's a discussion the council could have, and we could then adjust in terms of the final plan.
But it's a budget spend decision and issue. You know, rates is just the result that falls out of what you make around the work program activity spend decisions. So that's where it sits. Like Richard said, it's probably quite late in the piece for us wanting to go out and consult, but you might have a different view when you hear back from the public over the next couple of months.
Yes, so that this part here, Gary, gives us that opportunity to take that. We've got it in there. What's the community going to say? And then at deliberation times, we can leave it and take it out. We can shuffle that around at that stage.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah, yeah.
the purpose of this workshop is to bring forward these.
Absolutely, mate.
ideas and
Absolutely,
options.
Gary. Yep.
I can hold them all until that.
No. The quicker we know about it, the better, the
But,
more chance we're going to think about it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's uncommitted expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is where it's sitting. So it's in the budget, but it's not committed.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Kate,
Well, just following on from that, and I'm very aware how tough people are finding things at the moment, and I'm just wondering whether that is a message that somewhere we need to put in there, that while it's in there because we consulted on the long-term plan and that, this is something we specifically want to hear about from the community. And I'm really happy that it is in there because we did consult on it, and I would think, so the question I have for whoever in the room is got brains here, I presume the easier time to make that change is during deliberations now, rather than trying to do that today, this afternoon. But the deliberation, but we should be potentially messaging that we want to hear about it.
yeah, well, it is on page, it is in the chair's opening address that we're actually, a key highlight for the coming year is introducing a new $2 million environment fund.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would, do we need to do that any more than that? Why my rate's going up? I read the introduction, there's $2 million going in there. Do I want it? If I want it.
If I can just say, there's also a deeper dive into the environmental funding on page 2. of
Yes,
Matapuna,
yeah.
which talks about it, and I think we want to be careful about shifting the focus of Matapuna to specific request feedback versus the general, we would like to hear what you think and we value your thoughts across all the different, across what's being proposed, because it would change the nature of what has been created for the communications approach.
Point, okay. Tim,
Haven't we already consulted on this through the long-term plan, the 10-year plan? This $2 million fund has dropped out of the long-term plan, isn't it?
correct? Yes.
So-
This
so
is,
that's-
this
it's
is,
already-
this is the year we've decided to charge it.
But it's already been consulted through that process.
Yep.
Right.
But at this stage, as CE said, it's an uncommitted budget line at this stage, so there's no work program to go with it at this stage.
I was just
Gretchen, sorry.
gonna- Sorry, note that, that's right, it was, we did receive feedback and overall it was positive towards, bringing in the fund and for it to be, the 2 million. But, I guess as others have said, there's always the chance at annual plan to assess whether anything's changed significantly, and that's what Councillor Kelleher's raising. Has the environment changed at all, and should we consider that and seek feedback, I suppose? But yes, we have already done the significant consultation on that and set some community expectations that it's coming. Yeah.
Thank you. Further, good, thanks, Nick.
That's sort of all I've got.
That's where you-
There's a few
you got-
questions that have come out that I'll go away and have a look at some things this morning and might
Yeah.
fire out some things that might answer some more questions.
Yeah, and it looks as though you're just about onto them anyway, so that's very cool. If there's no further on our progress and on our rates, we better go and have a chat about the talking to the people. Comms team. Thank you, team comms. Floor is yours.
Thank you for having us back. We have taken your feedback from last time and reflected that into the Te Matapuna content, which now includes a finance section and has been designed. So it'll be great to hear feedback from you on look and feel, messaging. Anything else you've got to say about it? So I think that was circulated, I think, last week. We're able to share it as well. I think Amanda's gonna put it out.
Kate is the first question, Kate.
Actually, it comes out of the discussion we had this morning, and I'm just going to check on the wording, and we always talk about flood protection and drainage. It's not full protection, it's gives people time. And I'm just wondering, given our nervousness, and it's a headline here, whether flood protection is the right word anymore. It sets us up for an expectation that we are going to protect everything, not just give people time. And I'm sorry, I should have put that out there earlier, but I flagged it this morning.
Yeah, I mean, largely it is protection. It's an extreme event where it, you know, the level of service sort of tips past protection. And we're more in that space of I've had time to a point, but largely our infrastructure is designed to provide protection for a vast majority of events that we have. We know that there is some work to do around communicating with people to understand the level of service that each of those schemes provide, but I'm pretty comfortable that that description reflects the primary purpose of those assets.
Okay.
I think that there is just, you know, that additional piece of work that talks about what is that level of service and at which point, you know, are we tipping past what they're designed to do?
Okay. Further questions?
I just have,
Lloyd,
mine's just more
And
of an
Joe.
observation, because,
is that, yeah, we read
sorry,
that.
mine's just more of an observation, because you get these things in the mail and you have to really, it's like all in the first split second. So I'm just wondering whether the front page needs to have something. I wrote down some stuff actually, like it's good, it's got Gretchen's forward, but it's, with all due respect, it's quite long. And whether, and you know, I just wondered whether we had something like, you know, rates addition, predicted, you know, movement from 13.9 to 7.9%, see inside the details, or like a big banner type. Well, perhaps I should actually read this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So we can try that.
There is the yellow banner. Special edition, your rates in the year ahead,
Yeah.
more than that.
Yeah, well, probably wouldn't entice me to open the page, to be honest.
Understand.
Um,
I'm not uncomfortable with
Yeah,
short
well,
things,
so
stuff
am I.
from me either at
Right.
all.
Effectively with a publication like this, you kind of have two front pages, your back page and your front page. So we can potentially put it onto the back page. So that, you know, whichever way it lands on the kitchen table, so to speak, it's there, but the front page is probably the most important. So we probably need our lead points in there. So I'll take that on board.
Kate,
Can we have phone numbers instead of, I don't want people to email, think the only way to contact me is an email. I think most of them would respond much quicker to a phone number on the contact your ORC councillors. And I'm personally very happy and prefer a text or a phone call.
yep,
Can we just check, is everybody comfortable with a phone number being included?
yes,
yeah.
Lloyd,
Just with the banner up front, I found my page I wrote down what I was thinking. I put, but what would make me open it is what we do and what we've changed. Annual plan 25-26, what we plan, what we've changed, because that's what it's all about, what the changes to our long-term plan. And I'm just trying to get people to actually open and read it.
yeah, I'm actually really comfortable with your back page. Which is also could be your front pages because how it
Yeah.
lies on the desk, but I would like a more number and bolder, and there's a lot in that message that's really good. So I'm not knocking the message. I'm just saying that some big numbers up in the area would be pretty good for me to actually, yeah. And Elliot,
Just sort of before my other question, sort of noting a tension between what we're saying before around not trying to get the headline of, oh, this is the rates number, because that misses a lot of the context around that not being the case for everyone. And then us wanting a headline that grabs people in there, so just noting that tension, I guess. And I'm very comfortable with how it's sitting now, having that rate stuff and contact details and stuff on the back page, which can often be the front page, depending on what side it's in the letterbox and whatever. I was just sort of wondering around the transport stuff, just sort of thinking about, the ODT headlines that'll be coming out after our meeting this afternoon and stuff. People are going to be thinking a lot about fares. And I just wonder if it's worth sort of just noting anywhere that the annual plan is not going to be dealing with fares, even though you're seeing stories about fares and how they might increase and stuff. Because I imagine that'll be where a lot of questions will be coming.
That's what that blue pop-out box is intended to signal, that there'll be an opportunity to give the feedback on that through RPTV in the future.
Yeah, I think that'd be perfect. Maybe just the wording could just be a little more explicit in that box. I think. Cheers.
Comfortable? You, Gary? Yeah.
Just on Gretchen's forward, which I think in perfect times and would be quite appropriate, but with the government we currently have and the concerns we've had from the ratepayers, the tough economic times that aren't going away, do you think this sort of description here is balanced enough in stating to the people that we are listening to them, we are, we have a few words, almost one sentence around efficiencies and workflows and deliver value for money. But, we've seen a real escalation in concern from our ratepayers. They are showing to us the increases they've suffered year on year. We've had massive escalation in staff. The organisation has grown substantially. And I suppose I was hopeful for more of a message around that we've listened and how the efficiencies are being found, how value for money is being found. I suppose to me, it's almost too bland in not recognising that, but that's just me. I mean, others might have a different view. I think we need a stronger message to our ratepayers that we are listening.
The Gretchen's forward, we can, with your permission, Gretchen, we could potentially work with some.
Yeah, we were just trying to harness the main changes, I suppose, of and the main highlights, and try not to talk for too long. But yeah, it does try to capture initially that we've listened and we've been focusing on efficiencies. But yeah, if we can agree that it is, that's why it went up front. I agree with what you're saying, Gary, that it's an important point, and it is a lot of the feedback that we've had over the last year. So can certainly put some thought to, have we emphasised that enough and given enough example of where that's actually happening? So yeah, take that on board. Yep.
Can I check something, Gary? In the rates changes for 25-26 section, there's there's the bold piece which just sets out the number, and then the next two statements, you're just looking for those sort of statements, but more upfront. So there's a statement there, councillors said they're aware of people facing and listening to the feedback. We've worked to reduce costs, will continue to deliver services, but you'd like that to be more upfront.
Yeah, I had hoped everything we're saying here is more about showing the ratepayers that we do intend to get to an utterly efficient and lean and value for money organisation. And I'm just not reading that in what we're saying. It's almost like saying, oh, well, we've had some change of government and we've had some money taken away or whatever, but we're still carrying on as we were. And I think with the level of pushback we're getting, which is justified, yeah, I would just hope we would be more providing some sympathy back towards that. I don't know, maybe
That's
others
good. I
are,
just wanted
maybe
to-
others are
just wanted to
comfortable
guess
that that's,
that.
yeah. That what we're saying there is fine, but it just concerns me.
Michael,
I looked through this last night. Isn't the real reason that we've decreased from 13.8 to 7.8%? The primary reason is that we've lost the co-funding from public transport and therefore we're not spending that money? Isn't that the real reason? So why are we telling lies? I mean, I'm going to get upset about this. The real reason that rates come down is because we've lost the co-funding. It's nothing that we've done particularly, it's that the government have done it for us. And as a consequence, we're deciding not to contribute. I looked at the figures last night, have I got that wrong? Isn't that the real reason?
So
Sorry,
choosing not to invest the money that we had set aside for public transport is a large part of the reduction.
That's correct.
Yep. The
Yes,
decision
so-
still had to be made not to spend the local share.
Well, what were you going to do? Spend it on what? The other half wasn't coming through. You didn't have an option. So why are you complimenting yourself?
It's your table, your decision.
Okay, I see. And
We could have 100% funded and done, say, half as much, but have 100% funded it, for example. So we did have to make that decision.
well, it's not much of a decision to make with all due respect, because then you would double your rates.
There are some other efficiencies that have been found as well, is my understanding, beyond just public transport, including river management. What else, Richard? There's some others as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting to you is if you are going to communicate the truth. The primary reason that we have been able to reduce is because we are not getting government funding. You've actually mentioned it in your introduction, but the consequences are a reduction in rates overall. I mean, when you say, gosh, essentially you're knocking yourself patting yourself on the back and saying, oh, we've taken off 6% of your rates. That's because the government said, guess what? We're not playing ball on the PT anymore.
which is, that is reflected in the opening statement.
No, it's not. That does not say that.
The numbers don't, the number isn't shown, but improvement remains, while enhancements are planned for Queenstown and attracted government co-funding proposed enhancement of the network will not attract co-funding and existing service will continue unchanged.
I'm going to be saying more on this afternoon.
It's cool.
But I'm just raising with you that as a communication, this is in actual fact misleading. The primary reason is not because we've listened, which is in the preface of the chairman or the chairperson. It is primarily because we've lost the co-funding. Now, how much of that rate decrease is as a result of that decision?
Enough.
Kevin, there's two,
Go,
there's 2
Andrew.
points. One is the $2 million extra.
And that's the other
dividend
issue. Yeah, that's right.
coming out,
Yeah.
And there's another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Is that the adjustment for inflation went from 2.7 to 2.2, I think, off the
Yes.
top of my head. So
Yeah,
there's
that's right.
three
Yeah.
major factors
Yeah.
that influence the drop from 13.8 to 7.8.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and no, sorry, and the additional one was, I just can't remember the exact figure, was moving the flood work out another year, that because we couldn't achieve that, we didn't believe it was within our that we wouldn't achieve that work anyway, so we pushed that out another year, and that
Well,
might have been 1.2, 1.2.
You're right, Andrew. And that we've got one shot at communicating. It's this. They're not going to read the annual plan. They're not going to go online. This goes into every letterbox. How hard is it to have a couple of these bullet points to say, these are the reasons for the decline from the projected rate increase that you're going to get, and then just to quantify them quickly? Wouldn't be hard at all.
Sorry. That's probably similar to what Councillor Kelleher said before. I think it was you, that when you said perhaps shorten, did you say, were you the person that said shorten the chair's intro and then have a focus on headliner type things of interest, which was, was it you, Lloyd, on the rates decrease? You could do that. You could do a bullet point style of highlights you can expect in this as on the front and shorten this to something that's a different style. Totally happy with that. I think that's fine. And yeah, and then when they pick it up on the front page, this is what I expect to see and why. and bullet pointed would be fine, and yeah, what are the drivers would be fine, that would,
Thank you.
Elliot?
Yeah, I think I sort of take Michael's point here, because I opened this with the same thinking in mind of you know, we need to actually make sure we're clear that this is because we're not doing this transport stuff, and that's sort of the bulk of the reason. In reading the sections, I think, you know, if you read the whole thing, it's pretty clear that that is, you know, if we were to actually have the improvements that we're planning for in the LTP, the rates increase would be a lot higher than it is right now, which feels like the key information. But I do sort of think that the yeah, we haven't covered why the rates increase is less than what it was. We've only covered why there is a rates increase, which is covered in, you know, partly due to improvements in the work we do, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's a question I would be asking if I read this. So what have you cut out if I'm seeing this reduction? And I'm not getting that as a simple answer.
And so I think, you know, if you were to read this, it's pretty clearly implied, but I do think it could be more explicit of, you know, the plans in the LTP for transport not happening. I disagree with like that we didn't have a choice, because we could have funded for the amount that we'd funded for, or we could have went out to the amount that we'd already funded for and have had half the improvements, or we could have doubled the rates and done it to the full extent. But yeah, I do agree we need to be clear around these improvements aren't happening. That's why the rates increase is less. If we in the future want these improvements to happen and have a government that will let us, that's going to lead to a larger increase in rates in the future. That's not happening now.
Yeah, Elliot, yes. So when you do read your funding changes to public transport, which clearly sort of outlines, but what we've changes RSC is now proposed in so we go through exactly what we're doing, but we haven't said anywhere we've lost 4.6 million, was it? The total of the transport part that was gone. So, you know, whether we should have that number in there, because we haven't got $4.6 million, that sort of, because I would be asking, well, you know, why can't we still do that? The $4.6 million tells me pretty clearly.
Yeah, because I think the information's there, but maybe just not as explicit.
The number's not
as it could be. And so, yeah, you could say we've lost this, so we're not
Yeah,
spending
we're
it.
going
But it's a
to
postscript, it's a postscript to that though.
Yeah.
So all I'm just saying is, so why would you in your introduction to this say government co-funding for public transport's been reduced for Dunedin? And then your last bullet point on this section is funding constraints mean a Wanaka Upper Clutha public transport business case won't go ahead.
Yeah.
How does that correlate?
It's the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing.
Dunedin is limited
They're
to
two
Dunedin.
totally different issues.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well,
So
it's
someone in
not just
Wanaka,
Dunedin.
and believe me, they are the people who are going to get most upset because they paid the 40% plus last year. And they're going to say, so let me get this right. You've had your public transport taken away from you in Dunedin, but we can't get a business case in Wanaka. Run this past me.
Take the Dunedin out of the first sentence.
or add.
I mean,
Or add, that's also taken out as well. So I think that would be, rather than take out the word Dunedin, it would be.
Dunedin
more
and
explicit,
Queenstown,
wouldn't
would
it?
it? Or QLDC.
well, I think we need to be clear that the Queenstown public transport improvements for Queenstown are still funded and going ahead.
Well, then just take out Dunedin.
We can have a look at that, Joe.
But at the moment, that's sort of, is going to beg the question.
Comfortable that we look at that?
None of this is set in stone, so
Yeah.
we can rewrite and improve, so on the basis of the feedback today.
Tom?
Thank you. Look, I don't think we're responsible for actually giving an explanation as to why we've got a rates decrease. Well, in this communication, I think we're responsible for saying the 7.8% increase is made up of this. And Andrew, you've already identified it. It's the $2 million large scale environment fund, inflation at 2.2%, an increase in the dividend, and the increased costs with Whare Runaka. That's what we need to explain. I don't think we should get into this, you know, we've done this wonderful thing, brought the rates down. I agree with you, Mike. But we do have to explain why it's a 7.8% increase.
Alan?
And I guess that goes back to the importance of remembering to talk about the work we do and not only what the rates are, because of course people are paying rates. But then, as we've discussed on many occasions, there's a huge value that people do that thing. And so to keep communicating that there's a whole lot of stuff that gets done for these payments.
Yeah, good point, Alan. But what I'm probably hearing is will we have an explanation that we are not doing something, or especially in that public transport part, we probably should have some numbers there, as in we're not getting the $4.6 million, so those services aren't happening.
Yep.
Lloyd?
Well, you know, I just, because I don't know why we're just, I don't think I'd highlight $4.6 million. I think it's just that at the end of the day, that the council table had a decision to make around public transport based on the co-funding that was available. And we actually have got some public transport stuff in that is not co-funded, like the couple that we proposals at the end. So yeah, I don't think we need to highlight. Like I don't see it that the government took them. I don't see the rates is down because of the government. The rates is down because we decided to make the changes based on the numbers on the day. And I actually quite like Tim's idea as well, is that, you know, instead of coming from the negative, come from the positive about what we are doing as well, because that's some of the reasons why it is going up. Because kicking into the environmental fund and one or two of those other pressures being balanced by an overall, like at the end of the day, there's been a big effort looking at our overall work programs and where we can get make savings and get savings going into the future. So we don't want to discredit that effort that's been done and behind the scenes to actually look at the business and cut and trim as where there's surplus. And I think we've been doing a good job, and that will continue as we continue to you know, strive for efficiency within our business. Thank you.
So what are you telling me there, Lloyd?
I don't think we should be highlighting what the government's done in their plan. We should be highlighting what we're doing in their plan. And we, you know, if we're going to highlight anything, we want to highlight that the council table's got an overall, has got an emphasis on looking for savings where savings can be made without making a conscious decision to change our work programs to offset a reduction in expenditure.
Thanks, Lloyd. Michael?
I think you're conflating two things. The first thing you're conflating is the reason why the long-term plan, or year 2 of the long-term plan, has a rates increase that is different than the plan that we consulted on last year. So that's the first thing. And the primary reason is because the co-funding from government on public transport that we planned year 2 on is no longer available to us.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So it's a change. You've got to specify what that is, because this is an amendment essentially to the long-term plan as a consequence. The second is you've got to say, well, why are we going to increase rates in the second year anyhow? What is the work program that justifies that? Now, I don't mind. This has been quite useful discussion in actual fact, I'm sure, for the comms team to go, yeah, you're right, because you go, there's two issues here, there's not one. Why is it different than last year? And why are we giving you a rates increase at all? And I think it's been a useful discussion, but I don't want us to conflate the two. They're distinct from each other.
Elliot?
Yeah. I wonder if just on this page, just adding under a rates increase in 25-26 is partly due to improvements in the work we do, blah, 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 which is sort of covering what Tim's said about covering why there is a rates increase in the first place. Just at the end of that paragraph, this increase is less than what was originally proposed in that LTP.
So that is up the top.
So yeah,
which
yeah.
is less than the previously forecast 13.8%.
But just in terms of
I think it needs to be
because so maybe that could be because like comma because in that bold section, or it could just be at the end of that paragraph, but literally just reduce transport spend and efficiencies found in other areas of the organisation or something, just like really. Richard's just said before, there was some.
Years out of the LTC budget, so there's right across the business, there's bits and pieces. So what I'm hearing is that there's a desire right up front for much greater clarity on what is contributing to the 7.8%. So for me, it's a shortening Gretchen's statement on the front page and inserting a table that has some green arrows up and some red arrows down. These things are contributing to increases, these things we're bringing in which are contributing to a decrease, and that overall is your 7%. And that's right up front on the first page. The rest of this information is all relevant and it will supplement that, but I think what I'm hearing is you really want front and centre, these are the things that are driving the rates we are implementing. And we can do that. We can shorten with work with Gretchen to just shorten and get those key messages across, taking on what Gary had talked about earlier, and then find some room for a table and really just focus that table on what's gone up, what's gone down, just key headlines. And then in behind that is all of the, that we've got some key things we talk about, and then in behind that and the actual annual plan and generally is the other work that we're doing. But we're obviously limited to what we can get in on here. So I think that's what I would take away.
Gretchen, sorry.
Small point, but just on that first page as well, I think nurturing this special place is nice, but I think it's possibly not quite the right title, given that a lot of what we're talking about with this annual plan is actually about public transport. And it's quite, it's a little bit too soft, I think, about what this annual plan actually is.
That was, I put my hand up, it's my headline. And yeah, easy to change that to something you're happy with.
Thanks. But we may not.
It's a bit
even
fluffy
need
for
one.
you, Gretchen.
A little bit fluffy.
So, if we're this is part of the motions this afternoon. So
We'll work on something that reflects that change that's being requested. We won't be able to update all this.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But we can
Yeah.
reflect a motion that says effectively those changes, including then, inserting a table on page 1, which highlights key.
So we can let that
Unless
out.
Amanda had a different.
To be honest, I don't think it actually even needs a motion. We've obviously heard that feedback. We will do that. We will recirculate this via email as we have been doing. And if there's.
Because it's not part of the formal.
It's not, we don't need
It's not
formal
part of the
approval
motion
for Te
anyway.
Mata Puna, but obviously we want to make sure councillors are happy with Te Mata Puna.
So I thought it was part of the motion that we've got to do this afternoon. I could be wrong.
No, you don't have to approve it because we're not doing an SCP, so.
That's not.
So what Richard's saying is we can, and Amanda's saying we can keep the dialogue going with you up until drop dead date of the publication required. So you're going to print, yes.
And we've got about another week max before this will need to be sent to the printer. So we've got time to recirculate an updated version, but it's not a formal consultation document like the long-term plan. So it doesn't need that formal council endorsement.
So, I was getting a wee bit confused with number 6 says notes that a communication plan and draft consultation content for the annual plan 24-25 process has been considered in council workshops. So that's just noting that we've done this, you've got to change it. Yep, comfortable. Any further comments? And we'll go back to Mr. Rosler.
We move on to the next topics.
Yes.
Yep. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Sorry to share. Yep. So I'll just sort out my screen sharing. So it's fees and charges, page 45. On the agenda paper. Oh, sorry, paper attachment.
Well, she just been the App Store, but.
Sorry, what was that page again?
Page 50.
Yes, I've got it up on screen here now. So page 50 in the report gives you the attachment that shows you the changes to the fees and charges that are proposed for consultation.
It doesn't show the changes to the first item, so they're new. I mean,
Yeah.
presumably there was a
No,
fee
that's right.
before,
I'm gonna get Michael back.
but they were variable because
We don't want it.
we don't have the range in there, what they used to be.
Thank you.
So, so the first three that you're referring to there are actually, yes, new fees, so they're the key things I've really to focus on.
Yeah.
So yes, so new fixed fees around single farm dairy effluent storage and discharge, okay, single farm dairy effluent discharge to land, 3.5. Small scale contaminated land disturbances, 3.5. And obviously the removal of intensive winter grazing that Nick referred to before when you were looking at rates. Yeah, so they're the key moves to our current schedule that are proposed, and we'll go through the consultation that you're presenting this afternoon. And the rest of the changes are more sort of more inflationary. And,
Kate?
Can I just test these? Sorry, so the single farm, if I've got a single dairy farm, I'll either have an effluent pond and discharged land, or I'll have discharged land. I won't have both of those, would I?
so,
I'm just,
Normally you'd have both.
normally it's the top one would be the one that applies.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally it will be, oh, sorry, microphone's going green. Normally it will be, but there might be some farms that have a permitted storage or some sort of system where they don't need the consent under our rules, so they would be the lesser fee, but the majority will be that $5,000 fixed fee for both.
Okay, and so this is on top of the consultant's fees, which will do the storage pond audit.
These are just solely for our costs, yes, so any cost for a consultant, anything is external to these fees.
And how often do these have to be applied?
The current term for these is generally 10 years, 10 to 15 years based on the policies in our current regional plan water.
And these fees are based on what is the sort of median cost of doing that now, and to give you a fixed fee rather than a.
Yes, yeah, provides more certainty for everybody at the start of the process.
And presumably there's some people trying to do their own paperwork and potentially doing a bad job that will mire the costs. Yeah. I understand having a fixed fee, and I generally support that, but it does mean that people who may not be good on paperwork may just take up a lot of time.
We would also hope to support those people through our pre-application service and our dairy workshops where we can, so that when they do come into the process, it's best put forward for all parties, but do recognise there will be overs and unders in terms of any fixed fee that we do propose.
I've got one question at the last end, but I'll do that. Everyone else had a chance.
Lloyd?
I'll just ask, because I've got a big cost. Are there any other consents that have fixed fees as opposed to an hourly rate?
Yes, there are others. I don't have our current schedule of fees and charges in front of me, but we do have other ones with fixed fees, or we have used them in the past. So, for example, our intensive winter grazing fixed fee, we are removing that because that consent requirement is no longer there, and they are a tool that we have used effectively to date.
And I just wonder, my other question is how, because this is sort of fairly new, how does this relate to the cost that, because you've been doing the dairy effluent storage and discharge consents for the last 2 years. How does this cost relate to income recently? Well, what's the range of costs? Because like out in the field, I'd say the range is from like yay to yay.
Yeah, I don't have the exact range for the processing costs for dairy effluent consents, but I can get that information from our business partner, but it's not something I currently have. I do know that that fee will be set in the middle to account for what we have done over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Tim?
In these fixed fees, what sort of margin have we got in here? I mean, $5,000 seems quite a lot of money. Is there profit in there that we're taking? Is it costs we're covering? So what are the big costs?
So we recover our actual and reasonable costs. We don't make a profit as such based off processing of resource consent. So it is balanced off how much work we will actually reasonably do. And it is not a profit making exercise for council.
Kate?
So if the one that is the exception to looking like it's an increase that's general is the second last one, which is small on-site wastewater discharge, which has gone up substantial amount from 350 to 450, well above inflation. Can I understand why that is? And I just want to check in which case where this actually applies, because I don't think this is a fair charge at all. No, we'll explain that in a minute.
So that's our compliance monitoring fee. So that's if we do go out on site and monitor the consent conditions or audit any supporting document associated with on-site wastewater discharges. So it recognises the amount of staff time that goes into that processing, also the receiving of any technical documents that come in with that. So it covers two teams, and it's to make sure that that fee actually recovers the staff time that we spend doing that, and where we can, we have always ensured that we put efficiencies in place to make sure we're being as time bound as possible, recognising that there is an increase there, but it is a proposal in terms of an increase in fee. So it may be something that we do receive feedback on or could be changed.
Okay, thanks. So what you're saying is that at 350, we're not washing our face on that proposal, and so we're not highlighting that that's well above inflation. It's for another reason. Thank you. This only applies A, if there's a problem, or B, on the very small number of consents for like an outcome that have been put in the last 15 years that have to get monitored, whereas most septic tanks are not monitored. Is that correct?
So there are a number of permitted activity wastewater systems throughout Otago, and we can't recover our monitoring fees for monitoring permitted activities, and that is just the way that the system is set up for us to do at the moment. So we recover our costs for anything where there is a consent in place that we monitor, and that's based off our current rule framework that we have in place and we've operated under.
Yeah. So where else does that apply apart from outcome? Like, I just know of the outcome one. I'm just wondering what.
There are another couple of areas in the rules. I don't have that detail, Kate, sorry, but I do know I can get that, but I just wasn't anticipating questions around where rules cover in Otago. So I think there's somewhere in North Otago as well. Yeah.
To be middle mic, but.
Just wanted to check if there are any concerns or things we've got to try and sort out in terms of applying these fees and charges to fast track consents, or whether that's easy enough to just apply them as a regular consent.
So that the cost recovery for fast track processing doesn't sit with us. It sits with either EPA or Ministry for the Environment. I can't remember. So we actually invoice to one of those two parties and recover our costs. So we don't charge applicants for that if we're in the formal process. If they come and seek formal pre-application advice, then we will charge them under our schedule of fees and charges at our hourly rate, and that's just our normal cost recovery system. So there's sort of two pathways, but there's no issue here with that. And then if a consent is granted, it then flips down into our cost recovery framework under our compliance monitoring fees.
Roy, you had your hand up.
Oh, yes, that new fixed fee for dairy audit fee. So how was that financed in the past?
So that's been under a dairy rate. So the proposal has been that that's been removed from year 2, and the original thought for this year was that it was going to be replaced by that farm plan rate, but with the farm plan regulations not being introduced, that was no longer progressed. So it is now based on if we audit you, you will be charged the fee for being audited, and it's just on a per property that we audit basis. So yeah, we've moved from a rate to a cost recovery.
Is that based on auditing all dairy farms annually, or?
No, it'll be based on our risk-based approach to compliance auditing, and the incentive there is if you are of high compliance, you will be audited on a less frequency and will be less likely to have to pay that yearly fee because you won't be inspected as frequently.
It's a shift we've been trying to make for a while, where we're not just flat feeing every dairy farmer through rates, but actually if you're good and you require less compliance monitoring, you will ultimately pay less. Whereas if you're not, and we're there every year or more than once a year, you'll be charged a fee for that. So it's trying to use it as a behaviour change mechanism, which we haven't been able to do in the past, where we just just have a dairy rate for everybody.
Just being the devil's advocate for a little bit, I guess. It's because at the end of the day, like why do we do dairy audits?
It's to monitor compliance with the resource consent conditions, and they are one of our priority activities in our compliance strategy as well.
Any further questions?
Indeed.
Yeah. Mike?
Yep, so just one final comment around process around this consultation. There'll be a separate question in our feedback form around, prompting fees and charges. So when it comes through to reporting, through to deliberation for councillors, it'll all be pretty clear and clearer to the public too.
Great.
So that all comes through your deliberation as part of the plan package. So shall we move on to news and tables? Yep. Okay. So we'll just move to page 46 of the report. Just so you'll see there, table 7. So table 7 in your report, your formal report, it summarises the changes that the management team and corporate team have made to the largely the targets. This is something that occurs every year. It's just part of an ongoing process of improvement. And sometimes alignment with what's happening with the services, and also alignment with what's happening with our processes behind our systems behind the scenes, as we invest in getting better in how we work. So I can quickly run through those for you. Just the detail of this is actually in the plan itself. So if you want to see the actual detailed target measure, you can jump into the draft annual plan that's attached, and you can see the key ones are bolded in red. Again, that's just easy to spot them, and the draft annual plan is attached as part of the consultation as well, supporting information. So this stuff can be easily found and seen if needed for those that are interested. So regional planning, targets being refined there. With the completion of the strategy and regional plan here, so there's a sort of alignment there between those two work streams. Regulatory, the target related to recreation, boaters and safety has been refined. It's sort of an improvement that's come through from that team. Land and water, I won't get into that, but it's largely reflecting the changes that we've had in our program that's been well socialised.
Karen, question?
Yep. Michael?
On the land and water, target for developing new projects for degraded water bodies has been removed. Okay. And then the next says this reflects a desire to reconsider regional project priorities in the context of the new scaled environment fund, which we're putting into this annual plan. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Isn't the new environment fund competitive?
I couldn't comment on that.
So still, the process for that still to be confirmed.
Right,
There's a
so,
paper coming on that,
okay, but it's meant, okay, so we're assuming that it's going to be a tendering or a competitive process in which people.
Not necessarily, no.
Could be just a targeted.
Could be targeted.
Expressions of
So
interest.
there'll be a paper coming to council to determine exactly what the makeup of that fund is. What that reflects is in the draft annual plan, there has been the removal of funding and for what we call the next targeted. So we've got Tomahawk, Black Hayes, Te Wakatoto at the moment. There was a proposal to continue with the next, whatever they were. That's been removed through the annual plan development process this year, going back to before Christmas. And so that target's therefore been removed. And one of the key reasons that was removed is that funding now for the environmental fund will be effectively the way that that investment is targeted to different catchments around the region. So that's why that target had to be removed, because we've no longer got the funding in the draft annual plan for our next tranche of degraded water bodies.
Do we need to say that?
Not in the target specifically, because this will just carry through to that attachment that sits with my report each month and that you get quarterly.
And what's the consequence of the target now not being, of the target being removed? So you've explained why you're removing it, but what's the consequence now that you've removed the target?
Don't have to report on it. It's not a requirement. It's not part of our work plan that we're reporting on.
So what's going to be end up being continued to be degraded as a consequence of us taking it out of our work plan?
What's what, sorry?
What water body will continue to be degraded because we are not funding the rest of it?
We're intending to
We
fund.
don't know. We can't state what would be degraded. None of them might. They might all, through community work, start to improve, or others might start to degrade. So
All right. Okay, so you hadn't in the long-term plan decided on a plan as to which work bodies you're going to take on, of water bodies, degraded water bodies you're going to attack in years 1, 2, and 3.
no. So the target was to create the next 3 after the current 3 that we're
Okay, so you've
getting
answered
towards
the
the end
question.
of.
You hadn't got.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, they hadn't been confused.
The wording is difficult. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It reflects what's happened though.
Yes.
That's why I was asking the question.
You need to think on that before this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we should put the funding back in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, sorry, I should have added that. Michael?
Biodiversity, biosecurity, key thing there is that there's a shift from, and the target from 90 to 80. I think that 90 was just an overstretch, and you really will have a sense of a realistic target. And still the district. Again, the targets remain to the review of the regional air plan and have been refined. Natural hazards, addition of a new measure related to delivering natural hazards work program. So it's a new measure there, and target reflects the improvement of the process for prioritising our work there. In that area. And include developing year 2 targets for the adjustment to reflect expectations on our, based on our current year delivery, so this year's delivery. And transport. And there's a new target there relating to the implementation of the regional land transportation plan. And we've improved the scheduled services and reliability measure and targets. And we've now also split them between the districts. And we have a higher target in there. So we've increased the target. And just in differentiating between Queenstown and leading services. And finally, improved reliability measure and a slight reduction in the target from 95 to 90. And again, just providing a more realistic stretch. Let's give ourselves a chance.
So I would say on that one, that one does, goes against any metric that I've heard about improving bus patronage. And if in fact, and when you look at the explanation, if in fact it's making more realistic because we're finding in Dunedin that we're going, or places we're going around roadworks, if there's no roadworks, so we're then comfortable with 90% as opposed to 95%. To me, it should be at 95%, staying at 95% with the explanations. Yes, we have, and the communication, yes, there are roadworks on George Street or Corstorphine Road or wherever the roadworks are, and you may expect delays in your service because of that. Because simply if there's no roadworks, you're now allowing your service to be 10% of the time not there or not punctual, which to me is a two greater.
Often area, I think I'm correct if I'm wrong, but plus and minus 5 minutes, I think. So standing at the bus stop, and it's 5 minutes.
Sorry?
It's standing at the bus stop. It's a fail if it's over 5 minutes late. That's the measure. That's what's driving the measure. That's my understanding. But
Yeah.
correct me
But
if I'm
Kevin,
wrong.
what you're saying is why are we dropping it to 90? So the,
Yeah.
the
It's a
punch
high-
value at 5 minutes is fine, that's,
It's a
you
high
know,
bar.
that's set, but the question is, should we not be striving for 95 and just explaining if we don't reach it?
Yeah.
That the issues related to ongoing roadworks or potential city or whatever it might be. So I don't know, Anita, if you've got.
I mean, we could do, we're not anywhere near 19 now because of roadworks, that's why and then Queenstown is going to get
Just gonna say that.
worse with the projects that they're doing, they're exponentially worse. So I mean, we can raise it, but we're not gonna meet it. That's the upshot, is if we put it at 95, we absolutely won't meet it, through no fault necessarily of our own. So it just depends, I guess, on how you want to report. We're pretty clear we can't meet it because of the roadworks, especially in Queenstown. Yeah,
Can you separate Queenstown from
they
Dunedin?
are separated
They
now,
are
that's one of the
separated.
changes we have made, but there are still challenges in Dunedin.
So is it 90 in both Queenstown and Dunedin that you're proposing?
Yes.
Well,
We
yeah.
can go away and have a look at what the numbers are looking like now
Yeah.
and come back to you.
Andrew,
Also, there are lots of variables, you can take weather conditions, you can take peak traffic, air, in the morning and the afternoon. Where like Anita has said, we've got no control over some of these factors. So it makes it really, really difficult to achieve a high bar as simple as that, so.
I think what I would say too is just because if we landed on 90, it wouldn't mean that that's what we're aiming for. It's just that we've discussed over the last few years in terms of our level of service reporting, both in during the year and that annual report time, to try and set targets that we have a realistic opportunity to achieve and then report on as having achieved during the year. Our reflection is that this is not, as it currently stands, a realistic target because of the way that both networks operate. So we've tried to refine it to something that is probably still a big stretch, and as Anita said, particularly with the roundabout work in Queenstown, but it gives us a chance. It doesn't mean to say that if we have a really good year, we'd be satisfied with 90% and we'd take the pressure off. Obviously, we'd still be trying to get as many services as possible. But ultimately, if the council would rather measure ourselves against 95, there's no issue. They're your targets to set.
And Councillor Malcolm's right that the best way to get people on the buses is to make sure that they're reliable and on time. So
Yep.
so it is a balance between those two things. You're absolutely
yeah,
right.
thanks. Yeah, Elliot.
Just have 2 points on that, and the first was just sort of asking what the improved punctuality measure was. Is that different to the target changing? We're doing something there, and then the other one was just around moving to 90%. I think I can live with it. Sounds like that sort of is the ambitious target, but yeah, keen for us to be ambitious there. My worry is not having a separate target for buses showing up at all.
Yeah, can I just jump in and make this crystal clear? So there are two separate measures. One's, and I got confused over this too, that's how I know about it now. Reliability is the bus turning up.
Yeah.
And leaving the station on time and then, going through its route. The punctuality one is whether it's 5 minutes late picking you up at the stop.
Yeah.
So the reliability measure has gone up. We've actually put that target up higher.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking there's probably some contractual pressures coming on there to really, keep the pressure on that. It's the punctuality one. There's a bit of.
So I was just going to double check what that reliability one was, and that wasn't changing.
We lifted that target. We pushed it even higher.
Do you recall what it is? Sorry.
Greater than 99%.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. That's all I was wanting to make sure.
Yeah.
And then if that punctuality measure, what that actually is or how we've improved that.
But thanks for the explanation, Michael. Further questions? Move on, Michael. Thank you.
So like fees and charges, these are proposed changes and are part of the consultation supporting information. So this comes back to you with the community feedback and any further staff recommendations in May in your deliberations. And you get a final opportunity to make some decisions around these. So, yeah. So in terms of this afternoon, you've covered off the key components that you're looking to approve in terms of taking out to the public for consultation. So are there any other matters that you as a group want to discuss in terms of this afternoon?
Kate,
Look, the wording that Michael was just talking about in the target for developing new projects for degraded water bodies is actually presented much better in the annual plan itself. In a way that doesn't give such a negative.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to read wordsmith, but when you look at the annual plan, which I just had up, I can't find it now because I of course changed it. It's actions developed, implemented in, no, it's not that one. I know I had it up here. When you actually read on in the annual plan draft on page 100 and something rather on, there's a much better way of putting it. I'm just saying that it's just such a negative statement.
Yeah,
it'll be good for review to hear that, thank you.
I'll leave you to have a look at that. Michael?
We can take it away.
Yeah,
okay.
good. Everyone comfortable? We will have some time now between now and 11 when we kick off to discuss any of those things together. As we have a cup of tea.
Yeah, right now till 11. That's right.
But of course, any of these issues will be revisited at
Correct.
formal discussion at the council meeting. Yeah. So if you have anything burning that you wish to alter, move or shift, start talking to your colleagues and get that sorted. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Communications.
Did you
and
find that, Amanda?
others that assisted.
Or is that up there?
Mike's,
Comfortable? All comfortable? All happy? I'll adjourn now until 11 o'clock.